Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, you can
lecture.
see. Yeah. So thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm very happy to be with you once again. Uh, Today and tomorrow, maybe for another few weeks, we are going to study Old Testament survey. Okay, so these are the classes we are going to have it. I'm not a scholar to, uh, in fact, teach this topic, but however, uh, since I have some experience of teaching uh, Old Testament even before my theological studies. So I actually engaged another brother to another person to take this one, but he was busy schedule. He couldn't come to our scheduled timings, so that's why he couldn't take it. But my experience with Old Testament survey, I always used to think that it's very difficult to understand, some of the things like the history and other things, remembering things of Old Testament and all. That was my opinion before going to theological studies. Before going to theological studies, I I happened to teach one of the church, uh, maybe one of the church. I got a chance to take a Bible studies on first 11 chapters of Genesis. So for that, I used to prepare a lot, and I even before my theological studies, I was telling. So I was so excited to learn so many things of the Genesis first 11 chapters. So that was my uh, first interest to study Old Testament, and later in my theological studies, and I have uh, assignments, and I have I listen to lectures and all. So I have done so many assignments on Old Testament survey and all. So that's how I can say I try to able to do justice for this topic. And also I wanted to make as simple as possible for you to understand Old Testament survey. And up to you to go a little even deeper. You can have your own study on Old Testament survey. Lots of books are available. Uh, Tomorrow I'm going to give you some of the excellent books where you can able to refer and you can study, so that you have a comprehensive understanding of the whole 39 books of Old Testament. Okay, so we are going into the topic. So the four things that we are going to study in Old Testament. The first one is introduction to the Old Testament. Second, season of the Old Testament. Third, books of the Old Testament, and conclusion. Okay, so today we are going to see only the introduction and also division of the Old Testament. Okay, so these two topics we are going to cover today, and maybe uh, tomorrow we start with the books of the Old Testament. Maybe Genesis, from there you can start. I don't know how many weeks that we are going to finish it. Maybe probably in another 2 weeks or in 3 weeks that we are going to teach. We are going to complete the complete course of Old Testament study. Okay. So are you ready now? Hello. Okay. The introduction. In introduction, we are going to see what is the canon of Old Testament, and what is the survey. Survey means what is the meaning of the survey, and the purpose of doing the survey and all, and what is the theme of Old Testament. So these are the four things that we are going to see in introduction. Okay, so canon. Canon means a measuring rod. Okay, canon means a measuring rod. Measuring rod means, the Old Testament we have 39 books. In New Testament we have 7 books. So of these 39 books happen to be, there are many books are there. Okay, many other literature, even Jewish literature is there, Christian literature is there. Many are very good books are, inspiring books are there. Why only these 39 books? Okay, so the the uh, the over the period of time, Jack only books. Hello, hello. So over the period of time, we select only this 39 and so they have a particular process of selecting these books. So that is called canon. Okay, so you can just go through what is canon and what is the Old Testament canon, and you can have more study on canon. So I think uh, we studied what is canon in the doctrine of scriptures. Okay, right. So what is the Old Testament? That means for for Hebrews, for Jews, what is the canon? For Christians, what is the canon? What are the books that we have, and what are the books that Hebrew Bible is containing? Uh, for Jews, composing of Hebrew scriptures happened over the years and completed by first century. Okay, so there are three types of books are available for Jews, and those books, all this Old Testament actually 24 books are available for them, for Jews. Those books actually over the period of time they selected, as you know, the first the section of the books are called Torah. Okay, so which was written by Moses, and later the prophets and the writings and all. So these books actually totally there are 24 books are available for Jews. For Christians actually there are some books divided and separated by the Christians. Okay, so what happened during the over the period of time? Torah was actually was available, maybe available by 400 BC. Okay, this is actually given by Moses. Navim means prophets, which is actually available by not all the prophets actually we are having in Old Testament are available in Hebrew scriptures. Some are missing. Some we are for Christians, some we are having. Anyway, that we are going to see it. Navi means prophets. These books are available by 200 BC. Ketiv means the things. So over the period of time, actually Ketivim actually finalized. That means written by Korah, the sons of Korah, and David and all those people actually written by 600 BC or 500 BC, something like that. But it was actually finalized by the whole entire Hebrew scriptures were finalized by first century AD, first century CE. Okay, So that's how actually by the first century, the whole Testament, maybe for the Jews, the Hebrew scriptures were ready. Okay, with 24 books. For Christians, the Old Testament actually by ready by first century, but the Old Testament and New Testament both was taken as scriptures, and it was actually finalized by third century. Okay, by third century. So total that 66 books were actually finalized by third century. So this Hebrew scriptures was taken as is. You can see what it can scan. The Christians canon is based on the Jewish canon, but it also included additional books that are considered to be authoritative by Christians. Okay, some of the books like Book of Jeremiah, like uh, Daniel, Esther. Now, some of the books actually we can see in in Old Testament Christian Old Testament canon. So, which in fact actually not there in Hebrew scriptures. Okay, like Ijra and all. So this is how actually the Old Testament was finalized by first century, uh, both by Jewish people, Jewish scholars. Maybe the scriptures were ready. Those scriptures we have taken, the Christians were taken, and few more literature was actually added to the Old Testament. Okay. One more thing also we need to see in the middle of the 20th century, that is 1940, that that the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. Okay, so they find so many ancient Jewish manuscripts. Okay, so these manuscripts, these 24 canon books were there, and in addition to that, many other books also there, many other scrolls also there. Okay, so then the scholars uh, now they are studying, and they're doing a lot of research on it. Uh, so by the time already the canon was finished, and these books were not included into the Old Testament. But anyway, the scholars actually, the biblical scholars, maybe they are doing some of them who are doing research, or maybe PhDs and all, they actually refer to this Dead Sea Scrolls. The original scrolls, scriptures were available in Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, so this is how we can see the scrolls. The scriptures were preserved over the period of time, and some scriptures were in use, and some are not used. Maybe it is God's will that some of the scriptures were actually not selected. But however, whatever the selected ones are there, those ones are actually enough for us to our understanding, and our understanding about God and his mission on earth, and his relationship with us. Okay, right. We'll go further. So the survey. What is survey? A study of opinions, behavior, etc. of a group of people. Okay, survey means collecting opinions and behaviors and many other things of a group of people. So we in Old Testament we see many people, many kings, many prophets, many lay people, many lay leaders, the now many the judges and many other people are there. So we are going to see their lives and see their opinions, see their behaviors, why they are like that. So that we are going to study a little bit deeply. That's what actually the survey means. Okay. In another definition, the action of examining an area of land and making a map of it. Okay. Survey means mapping it. Okay. Measuring the area, measuring the land. Okay. So if you wanted to buy a piece of land, you need a surveyor, and surveyor brings, the tape, and, he actually surveys. So all uh, the corners of that land, and then he finally uh, stamps that, this is the area that actually uh, maybe uh, 1 acre, 2 acre, maybe. So like that, he will definitely finally he finalizes. So like that, we are going to study. We are going to survey the Old Testament, uh, and make a map of it. That means, so we are deeply going to see to have a overall understanding of Old Testament. So in another way that we can, for example, we can say stand at the hilltop and survey the countryside. If you stand on the hilltop, or if you stand on a multi-storied building, you can able to see the whole thing. Maybe you can able to see the maybe 10 miles away, maybe 15 miles away from your eyesight. You can the whole area, you can scan it, and you can able to uh, see, and you will find the whole area. You can able to see the this is here and that is there, and the lake is here. Maybe the government offices are, on this side. You can, these are the hills, like that. You can map it, and you can able to see, because you are on the top of the hill. Maybe you are top up on maybe you are top on the building. Okay. So you are because you are on the top, you can able to see all those things which is available at the on the ground. Okay. So like that, Old Testament, the whole 39 books, uh, we are going to see. Maybe we will have over scan it. Maybe we can able to see all those things from a glance, and we can able to have an understanding, an opinion on it. Okay. So that's what the survey means. So why we need to study Old Testament? What is the purpose of studying the Old Testament? Because the Old Testament, the Bible is an historical, it is not a historical book, but whatever the things that happened in the history of Israel, or maybe the, the people mentioned in the Bible were historical people. Okay. The Bible was actually written chronological order. Okay. The Bible is actually written in a chronological order. It's not a thematic book. It was not written thematically, but it was written chronologically. Chronological means, for example, everything about the history you don't find in Bible. That means what happened in the 3rd century BCE in India, you don't find in Bible. Okay. So maybe uh, what happened in China, maybe what happened in America, you don't find in the Bible. Good. Because Bible is not history textbook. Bible is actually what is written in the Bible was actually it was written in a chronological order, and that's why whatever the history that is actually found in the Bible actually matches with other history books, maybe other history. Okay, it will not contradict with the other histories. Okay, that's what we need to understand here. Okay, so the purpose of having Old Testament survey is historical understanding of uh, maybe people, maybe places, maybe dynasties, maybe the kingdoms, maybe the people like prophets, maybe the those things, maybe the whatever the events that happened in the Bible, we can understand from the historical background. Okay, so that when we are reading, it is very easy to understand, to gain a historical perspective on the events and people of the Old Testament. That is very, very important. History is one of the main thing that we need to learn in Old Testament. Okay. Secondly, we need we need to study Old Testament for a theological knowledge. Okay. Theological knowledge. Theology means, we already saw in the beginning of our lectures, we saw what is theology. Theology is nothing but experiencing God. Okay. So theological knowledge. Theological knowledge means, so you can the experiences of the people of the Bible. You can make it very simple to understand the theological concepts and teachings found in the Old Testament. For example, worship. Okay. Maybe theological understanding of holiness, theological understanding of redemption, theological understanding about righteousness, resurrection, many topics. So, uh, in the Old Testament, what are the theological knowledge is available that we need to understand? So, in Isaiah we see 55:9-10. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. Why we need to survey the Old Testament means for our spiritual growth. Okay. So Old Testament is very important. Uh, as importantly as New Testament for our spiritual growth. To grow spiritually and deepen one's faith through the lessons and wisdom of the Old Testament. Okay. So, and it will help us. So Psalms 119:105 says, your word is the lamp to my feet and the light to my path. And we see another purpose of understanding Old Testament is moral and ethical guidance. Okay. To derive moral and ethical principles from Old Testament stories and laws. We can have guidelines. We can have ethics in whatever that we do, whether we run a government, whether we run a church, when we run a family, whether we work in an office, whether we work in a field, whatever we do, all the ethical guidance that we find in Old Testament principles. So that's why, and Old Testament principles and Old Testament laws. So it's very important for our life. And we also understand the cultural context of Old Testament, the people, to understand the cultural and historical context in which the Old Testament was given. Okay, how the people actually, for example, at the time of Abraham, what was the culture of marriage? Okay, maybe any other culture of how the worship culture and many other things that we learn from the cultures of the other surrounding people of Israel, Palestine. Okay, so these are the things that we learn from Old Testament. So it's very relevant for us. Okay, and another one more thing is we can see, since you're all the students and you are very keen to understand Bible in a different way than the lay people. So it is very, very important for us to understand, to survey the Old Testament, because for your preparation for teaching and ministry, to equip individuals for teaching, preaching, or ministry based on the Old Testament. Okay. So Second Timothy 2:15, Paul says to Timothy, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, the worker who does not need to be ashamed and who currently handles the word of truth. When you are teaching, when you are ministering, when you are preaching, so you need to have you need to stand on the top. That means you need to study more and more. You should have overall experience of Old Testament, so that your teaching will be more effective, your ministry will be more effective, your preaching will be more effective. Okay. So it's very interesting and very deep. So I think you understand the purpose of surveying Old Testament. So once again, I'm going to understand the historical, theological, for our spiritual growth, moral and ethical guidance, cultural context, and also for the uh, teaching of the Old Testament. Okay, so what is the theme? The Old Testament. What is the theme actually behind all these 39 books? Jesus is the grand theme of the Old Testament. Okay. From Genesis to Malachi, in all the books actually teaches about Jesus. In some of the books, you see him directly. Some of the books, you see him indirectly. Okay? So the redemption act of Jesus Christ is actually written throughout Old Testament. That's what actually we need to see in the Old Testament books, so that it is more relevant to the New Testament. Otherwise, if you don't see the theme of Jesus, the grand theme of Jesus in Old Testament, then it is very irrelevant for you to cling on to New Testament. Okay, New Testament teaching. So uh, Jesus is the grand theme of the Old Testament. The entire Old Testament is foreshadowing of Jesus Christ and his redemptive work on the cross. From Genesis to Malachi, there are countless prophecies, types, and shadows that point to Jesus. Okay. Right. Prophecy is a prediction of the future event. Okay. So Isaiah 7:14 says, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall receive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. See, so this type of the prophecies you can see throughout the Old Testament. sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Okay. For example, this how this theme carries. For example, if there is a necklace, okay, containing 39 pearls, okay, that means 39 books of the Old Testament. How this all these 39 books actually cling to one another? Maybe a thread was added inside the all these 39 pearls. Okay, so that thread was actually Jesus Christ. You understood? So hope you understand this illustration. The thread which is there in the necklace of the pearls is actually Jesus Christ. So that means all these 39 books of the Old Testament actually gives the account of Jesus Christ directly or indirectly. So now we'll come to hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, you're there, no? Right. Huh.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going on. There's no responses. Hope that you're listening, understanding. So we came to the
Yep.
uh, second heading now, the division of the Old Testament. How actually the Old Testament was divided for Hebrew people, for Jewish people, for Christian people. So we can see. So whether for Jewish or uh, for the Christians, it is mostly like you can see that threefold division. Okay, the books of Moses, prophets, and wisdom literature. Okay, the books of Moses, prophets, and wisdom literature. Okay, for a Hebrew Bible, Bible is actually called Tanakh. Okay, it is not Tanakh, it is Tanakh. Okay, it's this is not T, it is K. Okay, so please, I'm going to correct it later. Excuse me. Okay, Hebrew Bible actually is called Tanakh. Tanakh means the first three division books of the Bible is actually uh, written like this: Tanakh. T-A-N-A-K-H. It's not a T-H. Okay, please observe it. The Hebrew Bible, also known as the Tanakh, is canonical collection of Hebrew scriptures, including Torah, Navim, and Ketuvim. Okay, so from Torah, T was taken. From Navim, N was taken. From Ketuvim, K was taken. So that's why they call it Tanakh. Okay, so the Hebrew Bible is written in Hebrew with some passages in Aramaic. It is traditionally divided into 24 books. The Hebrew Bible actually having 24 uh, books. For example, First Chronicle, Second Chronicle in Old Testament for Christians, it is two two books. For Hebrews, for Jewish people, it's one book. First Chronicle and Second Chronicle, both are one book. Understood? So like that, now books were actually one book. That is the difference we can see. This 29 books here, 39 books. Okay. Uh, Second thing we need to notice is actually the Old Testament was written in Hebrew language. some part is this in Arabic. You know Arabic. Arabic actually is a local language. We can say the common people. So when Jesus was there, he used to speak Arabic, not difficult. People actually understand Arabic. The Hebrew actually was for the people follow Hebrew, but the common people speak Arabic. That's why most of the Bible was actually the Bible written in English. But some parts of it was what are the some parts? Probably except Daniel and in rest of the book. So Torah. First 5 books of the Moses. Torah, teaching. Okay. Torah means teaching. Also called the Pentateuch. Pentateuch means 5 books. 5 books of so Torah is actually first 5 books are actually first 5 books. Tell the story of creation of the world, the history of Israel, the law of given by the five. The Torah, what you find is creation, the history of Israelite, right? And also the moral, the law. What were the 5 books? It is actually called by Hebrew word, whereas so that's the Gandhi Diwali. Second one. Okay. So these are the actually these are the 5 called Torah. Okay. That means teaching. In other words, it's the law. Second type of books actually called prophets. Okay. Nabi prophet. Second section of the content of prophecy, historical narrative, and other writers. The prophets are categories. One is major type. The major prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Nation, here and then. The minor prophets are Hosea, Joel, Amos, Hosea, Jonah, Micah, okay, Zechariah. These are the major prophets. Minor prophets means this is not minor, but because these are the small books. Okay, these are the small books. And major prophets means Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel's were actually big books. Written actually a lot of stuff was written in these books. So that's why it is called major prophets and minor prophets. You need to find this difference. Second part of the Hebrew Bible is called prophets. That is Nevi'im. Third part of the Hebrew Bible is called Ketuvim. That means writings. For Christians, it is actually written as wisdom writings. Okay, is the third section of the Hebrew Bible. It contains a variety of writings, including poetry, wisdom literature, and historical narratives. Okay, so uh, you'll see, maybe I think five books. A group of books joined together under the heading of wisdom literacies: Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastics, Song of Songs, and other writing wisdom. There are few other writings are there like Ben Sira, uh, other things. But actually, in Old Testament of Christians Old Testament, actually Ben Sira, these are the books are actually not included. But in Hebrew Bible, it is included. So the New Testament writings and people testifies the Old Testament. Okay, justifies the testify the Old Testament writings. Okay, Jesus actually in Luke 44 he says, then he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. I came into this world to fulfill the Old Testament." That's what he actually means. The Old Testament means the law of Moses, prophets, and Psalms. Okay. So Jesus actually told, okay, maybe you can few more verses also there. Maybe I can give you that as an assignment. What are the few more verses which actually justifies the Old Testament writings of writings? Okay, so that's what I'm going to give you that one. Just see one word. These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses, prophets, and Psalms must be fulfilled. Jesus came into this world to fulfill what is there in Old Testament. So Old Testament means Old Testament. That means Old Covenant. For Christians, it is actually Old Covenant. For Jews, it's actually a Bible. There is no old and there is no new. For them, it is since they don't know Jesus, the new is not there in them. Okay. For us, since Jesus came into this world and we all accept him, the Old Testament become old. But Jesus is not denying Old Testament. He is actually fulfilling Old Testament. He was saying, I came into this world to fulfill the Old Testament. That's why we need to have a greater respect of Old Testament and study keenly what actually happened in Old Testament. What happened in Old Testament? Old Testament actually what happened means we can able to see the creation story, how God created this world, how sin is entered into this world, how we have fallen short of God's glory, and how the civilization began. Okay, how Hanok and other people walked with God, and how Israel's people came into existence, how God is historically led them. Okay, while He was leading them, He used to approach them through prophets. How actually prophets condemned sin and actually established again and again the spiritual. They actually renewed the nations by preaching God's word to them. Okay, they actually taught uh, them, the people of Israel, God's mercy and also at the same time God's judgment. Okay. So all those things we need to understand. That's the way we need to motivate it to study Old Testament very keenly so that we can understand New Testament, we can understand Jesus with a renewed, with more understanding. We can have a we can say that the overview. We can have an overview of New Testament with the light of Old Testament. Okay. So hope you understand something about Old Testament today. Thanks for listening. And just before closing our topic, once again I want to uh, quickly go through all the okay. Uh, Today we saw the introduction of the Old Testament and division of the Old Testament. Okay. In introduction of the Old Testament, we saw how actually Old Testament was for Jewish people. It was actually composed. How it is actually uh, over the period of time it is actually canonized. Canonization happened. So how actually they selected these books, 24 books, and we also saw the survey. Survey means what is the meaning of the survey, and what is the purpose of the survey. So what is the purpose? To understand historical background, cultural background, ethical guidance, theological concepts, and it is helpful for our teaching and preaching. Okay, for our spiritual growth, and these are the things that we, with the purpose that we are going to study Old Testament. And we also saw the canonization, survey, purpose, theme. So Jesus is the grand theme of the whole Old Testament, and he directly and indirectly in all the books of the Old Testament we able to see this. Second, how actually the Old Testament was divided: books of Moses, prophets, and wisdom. The prophets actually Torah. Torah means Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. These are the five books we see in Torah. And major prophets and minor prophets we see in second section of Navim. That's called prophets. And finally, Ketuvim. Ketuvim means wisdom writing. So there are another five books, I think so. Job's, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastic, Song of Songs. Uh, so these are the books actually written in wisdom writings. Okay. So we also saw how actually Jesus testified the Old Testament and he fulfilled uh, all the prophecies of Jesus Christ actually fulfilled. Okay. Thank you very much. Uh, Tomorrow morning, I'm going to give you the assignment. Uh, uh, Please take time to do the assignments. Tomorrow we are going to deal the third session, that is the books of the Old Testament. We begin with uh, Genesis, Torah, the first five books of the Old Testament. Torah. I think it will take little more time for us to understand Genesis because we'll start with beginning. That means the creation stories and how actually creation happened. Those things. Up to 11th chapter, it is very important for us to understand each concept, historical the points actually there in Genesis. Actually, we need to understand. precisely, so that that will be very helpful for us for our knowledge. And please pray that tomorrow I have from morning till evening I have busy schedule. Tomorrow I have to travel also. At least 200 kilometers I have to travel and come back home and take the evening session. And before our session, there is one more Bible study is also there for me. So pray that I'll be available for tomorrow, and we are going to have more interesting things tomorrow, and very important things that we are going to learn tomorrow. So pray that I may have. So I have notes and everything is there in my mind, but PPT is actually not prepared. Please pray that I am able to do that one and present by evening tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much for your patient listening. I pray that I request any one of you to pray and conclude this meeting. Brother Christopher, yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yes, brother. You have anything?
Yeah, it was the time when the lecture was giving us. There was a problem of hearing. We didn't hear much because of the maybe network problem whatsoever. So I was trying to raise that. I raised that hand so that you should know that we are not able to hear you clearly there.
Hello. Sorry.
Yeah, we were not able to hear you clearly. That was the thing I
Okay.
want to share that time. Yes, yes, yes. When
Uh-huh.
the lecture was lecturing, yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
anyway, hopefully tomorrow we will not have that problem. Okay.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, thank
So,
you.
but anyway, you have this PPT with you.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
yeah, yeah.
also I'm going to